are off that day, or like the past 5 months, we haven't been able to see each other. So it's a way that you guys can just go on and take a look at what we were doing. So we're gonna be good. So we're gonna talk about some basic knife skills today. For those of you guys that are new, for those of you folks that are familiar and comfortable with a knife, we're gonna go through some of the knives. These are my knives that I have with me. They basically mirror some of the knives up there. So we want to talk about using the correct knife for the correct job. I think yesterday when we were doing the peppers, so we want to make sure we have the right tool for what we're doing. So our basic, our knife that we do most of our work with in this kitchen is our chef's knife or French knife. Okay, this is kind of an all-purpose knife. You have your tip, your blade. This is called the spine. This is called the bolster. This is really where there's a lot of extra weight here. So it really gives you some balance when you're working your knife. This piece that comes all the way down to the end is called the tang. A good knife has the tang all in one piece. Some of the other knives that we use may just have that coming to about here. They're fine for what we do. Like for this commercial setting, I don't call these disposable knives, but if one chips or whatever, they're very inexpensive. This is about $120. So if this chips or breaks, I have a little bit of a problem. Okay, so when you see a tang that goes all the way down to the bottom of the handle, that means it's probably a pretty good knife. Okay, so our next important tool is our honing steel. Okay, all this does is hone. It puts the edge back on your blade. It doesn't sharpen. For that, we use a stone. You can see here, two different coarsenesses. You'll have a thicker, coarse grain that you'd start with, and then a finer one. It's almost like sandpaper. They would take all the final burrs off of it. These come in all sorts of different varieties. Sometimes there'll be 3 stones. But this will put the edge back on your blade. This will basically take the burrs. As you're chopping a lot, you create these little feathers like this on the edge of your blade. If that's right there, we basically want to just straighten it back up. Okay, so we have a professional service here that comes in twice a month. Getting them sharpened twice a month is plenty. Okay, so a couple different ways that we can use the steel. As you notice right here, longer on this end than on this end, so you always want to have the longer end positioned by your hand. And if you can look in there, you'll see there's a lot of knife marks on there. That means I've really come down, and if I had the steel like this, I'd come down on my hand. So we want to have our hand positioned a little bit back, have this part of the guard available here. We only want to use the part of the steel that we need to. I'm going to start at the bottom. I want to go in about 25 degrees. And simply, I'm just doing this. Okay? If you're not comfortable doing that, put this here and do it standing up. So there's virtually no chance of you getting cut. So you'll see on TV, that's not us. Okay? Okay? So see where it's coming down? I'm in no jeopardy of hurting my hand. Okay, and then we just take a cloth and we'll wipe that. Any burrs that were on there, we'll wipe that down. So really, you should always have, when you're doing a lot of knife work, you should always have this by your side. Okay, because every so often you'll want to re-steel it. Okay, so we have that. We have 2 different paring knives right here. This one is the paring knife we're most familiar with. This one is called a tournée knife. Okay, this is for small hand work. A classical French cut is a turned potato or a turned vegetable. It's about 2 inches long, has 6 or 7 sides on it, equal sides. Very difficult to do, but this knife will help us do that. If we're doing something small, say we're cutting the tops off of strawberries, or we're coring a tomato, okay, and we don't have a tomato shark, I've seen this little trick many times. How safe is this? Okay, this knife is about 4 times as big as this. What happens? We're in a busy kitchen here. What happens if someone comes and bumps me in the arm? Guess where that's going? It's my hand. I do have a cut glove on, safety glove, should all be wearing. Okay, that helps with this, not so much with this. Okay, so if we don't have that tomato shark, what I'll do is I'll position my thumb right here. I'm going to come in at a little bit of an angle, and all I'm going to do is move that around and pour my out. Okay, not using this freehand, and I'm only exposing that much of the blade. All right. I keep a bunch of different things in here. We always want to have our... This really is the most dangerous knife in your bag. This one, even when it's dull, can cut. This thing can be really dull and will cut you severely, okay? You always want to be careful of your off knife hand, and we're going to show you some of the ways to do that. We have a boning knife. This is for meat. This one's for fish. As you can see, a little bit pliable, so I can use this for fish or chicken. So as I'm maneuvering around, the blade will go with me. This is much more rigid, because if I'm cutting a big piece of meat, I want to get in there, work around bone, go through that really dense muscle. So I use something that has less flexibility on there. Okay? Okay. Right over here. So most of the cuts that we deal with in these recipes, you'll see small dice, medium dice, large dice. You might see julienne. You might see brunoise. So these are some of the cuts. I have some other cuts here, but you'll see a julienne cut. A classical julienne cut is going to be 1/8 by 1/8 by 2 inches. So it's really going to look like a very thin matchstick. Okay? Like so. Do we have to be perfect with that? Do we have to get out a ruler? No, we have to be in that ballpark. We cut these in specific sizes because the recipe is asking us for a specific cook time or a specific look to something. If I was going to stew something, I probably wouldn't use something like this, because stewing is going to take us probably 90 minutes. This will turn to mush. So if I have something that's a large cut, that's going to hold its form, but still is going to cook through, right? So then you have a fine brunoise and a brunoise. Now your brunoise starts with this, a 1/8 by 1/8 by 2, and then it gets cut again to 1/8. So this is something very fine. It might be a garnish. It might be the finishing touch of a soup. Okay, so these terms, instead of saying I need 1/8 by 1/8 by 1/8, I just say I need brunoise, or I need julienne, or I need fine julienne. You'll also see our carrot sticks are called bâtonnet or bâton. These are going to be 1/4 by 1/4 by 2. From here, we can go ahead and make small dice. We would put our stacks together like so, and then we would roughly cut like so. Okay, and again, I'm not pulling out a tape measure, but once I eyeball that about size, I'm good. And then you have your medium dice and you have your large dice. You guys are familiar with these. These are the carrot coins or rondelles, and these are typically about 1/8 to 1/2 inch thick, cutting this way. I'm not going to show you the paisan or the diamond cut or the tournée. I'll do later. We will show you some minced, how to mince up some things. You're often going to see supremes. Okay. This is from the orange. So what we do is we peel that orange down, just like we're going to do for any of our whole fruits like cantaloupe, pineapple. And we cut these down, and we're going to just separate these guys out right in between the pith. Okay? So all we have is just plain orange segments. Okay? Okay. Okay. So Onions are probably one of the most popular things we use. Peppers are as well. So when I'm gonna dice or even julienne, I peel it all down and I leave that little part where the root is. That's gonna hold all this together. Okay, so say I wanna do a dice. I'm gonna cut through. Now you're gonna see two schools of thought on this, how to dice this. One way is to come in like so to the thickness we want, turn it, cut this way, and then come back and cut it into dice. And you'll see this in classical textbooks. I find that it's dangerous. What am I doing right now? I'm bringing a knife towards my hand. If that slips, or if I have the blade angled up and it slips through that onion, and we know that happens, where's it going? It's going into my hand. So what I will do is I'll square this off just a little bit. I'll stand it up, and if I want to do a small dice, I'm going to cut down in equal slices just to about here, so I hold it intact. So I'm putting pressure on the front and the back. Okay, so I've made my initial cuts like so. Turn it this way. I'm going to cut the same way this way. So here's the part that you always want to take away. Again, you guys see this on television. You see the chef going a mile a minute. That's not us. Okay, we want to have this hand when we leave today. Okay, so we always want to protect this hand from this. The best way to do that is you're going to put pressure down and you're going to put your knuckles out. I just do one knuckle. So the worst thing that's going to happen to me is if I pull this knife up too high, I'm going to just cut a little bit of this skin off there. Okay? If I'm doing this, someone bumps me, you know, there goes some tendons. Okay? So you always want to protect this hand. So from here, and all I'm going to do is as I'm moving this way, this hand is giving resistance. And where it stops is where I'm going to slice. This hand is just following what this hand is doing. Okay? So I'm just eyeballing this. They should be all about the same thicknesses. So now I have cuts ready to be cut into dice. So this is still attached. So simply now I'm going to do the same exact distance I did on the other ones. And then when I come down to here, okay, and that's our dice. Okay. So for our julienne, we're going to go all the way through. So when they say julienne, again, this is a curved vegetable. We're not going to get a perfect julienne, but we want to be in the ballpark. We want to be about 1/8 of an inch. So again, what I'm doing is I'm going to use a little bit more of this knife. I could use all of this knife, which is fine. Only use as much as you need. So I've seen this before, cutting through. So again, what am I doing here? I'm exposing the entire blade to my hand. If I was going to use that method where I'm anchoring this, I'm only going to use this part of the blade and only go as high as I have to. I'm only going up to about here. So I could do that. Or when you're a little more comfortable, and again, I'm pushing this back to where I want to come down. Okay, now I want to anchor this a little better. Once you start cutting, this is getting taller, yet slimmer here. I want to turn it over because I want to anchor this so it's a little more stable for me. Okay. And that's our julienne cut. Okay. And we do that with all these vegetables. So yesterday, again, we saw cutting the stem out like so, like this. You want to, I go about halfway down. I pop one side out, I pop the other side out. depending on what we're using this for, if we want to do some sort of garnish on here, I may want to take all of this out and have a really nice presentation. If I'm just doing this for chili, I may leave all that in, okay? This can tend to be a little bitter, this part here. And again, this is gonna be a little more tricky because it's an odd shape. So this way I'm really holding on to it. And again, I'm using my knuckle here, but I'm going, see how slow I'm going? Right here? Like so. And if I wanted to do the dice, use that rocking motion, just like so. Just like I'm doing, just like this, okay? So that's why your blade is curved like so. I have a knife at home that was more expensive than this, and when they sharpened it flat here and ruined my knife. So I can't do that, it falls flat, right? So let me move this stuff out real quick. So I want to show you, we cut a lot of fruit here. And we cut cantaloupe and honeydew and pineapple. We want to cut this all the same way. So the first thing I'm doing is taking the crown off. And when I'm done with this, I want this to look like a football, not a soccer ball, okay? And I'll show you that. So what I do is I'll just cut what I need to cut this off so I'm stable. And my first cut is gonna start about here and should end about in the same place. What I see is this, where you get little chiseled pieces off and it looks like a soccer ball. So we want football, not soccer ball. Okay, so my first cut's gonna be probably the widest cut, just so I can see where I am here. So now I'm gonna probably make about 7 more slices down here. And I'm only gonna use this part of my knife because I wanna see where those thorns are right here, and I just wanna come inside of those. And again, I'm starting here and curving it when I get to the bottom, okay? So we want football shape. And again, the key is when you get down to about the last inch or so, you want to turn that blade under. So when you guys go to the market and you see pineapple for, I think right now Publix, I want to say it's like $2.99 a pound. Look what you just paid $2.99 for a pound. This and the crown that I'm throwing in the trash. So if this was by the pound, I'm really paying double for this because I can't use that. Same thing with cantaloupe and honeydew. There's a tremendous amount of waste on fruit. So when we're cutting our fruit here, we really want to take our time to maximize what we're getting out of there. And then from here, if I didn't have a core, but that's fine, I'm just going to come straight down here, right through the center of that core. Cut the core part out. And depending on what we were doing, if we were making a fruit platter, I might leave them in this size where I would just, like so. For us, when we're making our fruit cups, I might want to make these a little smaller. And remember, always try to have the flat side on your board, because now it's not going to move around on you. And again, I'm moving this back, always knowing where this knuckle is, like so. Okay. Again, don't worry about being fast. Worry about being safe. Speed comes when you're comfortable with the knife. That will come in time, okay? So the key elements, again, when we talk about this is safety, using the correct knife for the right job. If you're not sure, please ask. But I really don't ever want to see, you know, this again. Or, you know, here's my other favorite one, is this. Okay? I had a student in one of my classes before that was taking the pit out of an avocado. And how do we do that? We just whack it right here. Okay? She had an avocado that was so ripe that her knife was so sharp it went through the pit, severed the tendons in the palm of her hand. She had to have 2 surgeries on her hand. So all we do is do this, give it a twist. Okay? Just like that. So we can cut this a couple of different ways. I would suggest using a spoon, but here I'm just going to use a very small part of my blade. So if I want it diced, I'm just going to run this right to the skin, and then, do you have a spoon in here? No? Do you have a spoon right over there? Yeah. Anything over there is fine. Scoop. Yeah. Like that. So then all I would do is simply scoop it out, and I have all the little pieces, but you have to go all the way to the end. So instead of cutting this down, peeling it, and then slicing, this is a little more efficient way to do it. Always have that knife, that cut glove in your hand, okay? Last one I'll show you is that Supreme. So again, we're gonna do the same thing we did with the pineapple. Here. I'm gonna just use that very tip part of my knife. I don't wanna take off too much of the flesh that's inside. Just keep working it down. Okay, so now, as you can see, I didn't waste too much of that flesh. Now I'm gonna change my knife because I don't want this, because I am going to be working with this in my hand. As you can see the different segments, all I'm going to do is come in at an angle and cut it out. And we can use whatever's left in here as juice, okay? And I'll just work that all the way around here. That's the part that I'm remaining is often extremely bitter. So in a fruit salad, or if you were doing a plated presentation, this would look much nicer on a plate, like so, than having all the white part on it, okay? So those are just some of the basics. Again, for our purposes here, we do spend most of our time and effort on small dice, medium dice, large dice, Brunoise, and Julienne, okay? But again, safety is first and foremost. Always have that glove on. I know we often don't like to wear them, but it's better than going to the hospital and getting a bunch of stitches. Okay? Any questions? Cool. Thanks for your time.